I am going to start with a story today. I grew up Jewish, Reform, both my parents are Jewish, but I always found myself in Catholic environments. I went to a Catholic high school. I got my Ph.D. at Fordham with the Jesuits, and I now teach here at Sacred Heart University. So I've always really embraced, and I'm married to a Catholic man, so I've always embraced the ecumenical spirit of interreligious dialogue. However, when I was teaching one of my earliest classes to mostly Catholic students, I brought in a little bit of Woody Allen, I think it was, a little bit of Jewish comedy. It was very New York. I was teaching to Catholic students, primarily Catholic students who were from New England, and it didn't really, not that it went over poorly, but the jokes just generationally weren't quite a fit, and I was sitting there roaring with laughter, but my students were looking at me like I was nuts. So this was actually a course, interestingly enough, on Jewish literature and very serious topic, post-Holocaust narrative and art, which I team taught with a wonderful colleague. And we were actually both howling at the jokes, and but I think the students kind of felt a little bit uncomfortable too, because it was obviously the context of the course was a very serious subject matter. But we were talking about how the Jewish people have made sense of suffering and dealt with pain and adversity through humor and through comedy. And I think once we explained that to the students, they started to understand the laughter a little more. And we had some really rich conversations too about humor as a healer, as a problem solver, as a panacea in many ways to so many of the serious issues in our world. So I start with that story because I'm someone who has a passion and a love for Jewish comedy. Larry David, Woody Allen, the list goes on and on. Sarah Silverman, to incorporate some women, some Jewish women. And I've learned too that there's a rich tradition for discussing that and examining those interreligious comic connections here in the Catholic University. I've also influenced, I think, my husband, who's Catholic, to become a little more Jewish in his sense of humor, which I feel as though I've accomplished a lot. Not that there can only be one Jewish sense of humor, but there are some themes and some patterns that recur, particularly if you think about sort of New York and the New York Jewish experience. I have to mention before I conclude one of my dearest teachers and also a godfather, Herb London, who was an esteemed dean and professor and public figure, yet he was one of the funniest, most satirical, witty human beings I've ever known. And he taught me in many ways to appreciate laughter and to use it as a healer. And he always told me it's very important when you're finding a mate or a partner to make sure that you can share that together. And so even though my husband and I come from different backgrounds and we have different cultural sort of senses of humor, we have been able to unify. And I'm now able to use my Jewish humor freely in class, and I think the students appreciate it.